Close your eyes and let yourself drift back through time, back beyond the modern world, beyond the medieval ages, beyond the classical empires of Rome and Greece. We're traveling to a land where the desert meets the river, where monuments touch the sky, and where civilization itself was born from the fertile banks of the Nile. Tonight, you'll experience ancient Egypt not as a history lesson, but as a journey, a slow, peaceful walk through the warm Egyptian night, where the air is still and the stars shine brighter than you've ever seen them. There's no rush here, no urgency, just the gentle rhythm of a world that has long since passed, waiting to welcome you into its embrace. Let your breathing slow, let your muscles relax, as we walk together through these ancient streets and temples, along the Nile's edge and through the Valley of the Kings. Allow yourself to simply be, to observe. To drift, the Egypt we'll visit tonight existed over 3,000 years ago, during the height of the New Kingdom. Pharaohs rule from Thebes. The Great Pyramids at Giza are already ancient, standing silent in the desert for more than 1,000 years. And tonight, under the Egyptian stars, we'll explore what life was like when the sun set and darkness brought its own particular magic to this extraordinary civilization. So settle in, get comfortable, and let's begin our journey. We find ourselves standing on the western bank of the Nile River, just as the sun begins its descent toward the horizon. The sky is painted in shades of amber and rose, deep orange and violet. The river before us is wide and magnificent, its waters reflecting the changing colors of the sky, like a mirror made of liquid gold. This is the Nile, the lifeblood of Egypt. Without it, this civilization could not exist. The ancient Egyptians knew this, and they revered the river as a gift from the gods themselves. Every year the Nile floods, depositing rich, dark silt across the farmlands that line its banks. This silt is the reason crops grow so abundantly here, the reason Egypt has become the breadbasket of the ancient world. Along the riverbank, fishermen are bringing in their last catches of the day. Their papyrus boats glide silently across the water, leaving gentle ripples in their wake. These boats are simple but ingenious. Bundles of papyrus, reeds lashed together to create a vessel that floats, despite having no solid hull. The fishermen move with practiced ease, casting their nets one final time as the light begins to fade. Further along the shore, women are filling clay vessels with water, balancing them expertly on their heads as they begin the walk back to their homes. Their linen dresses flutter in the gentle evening breeze. Some are laughing together, talking about their day. Others move in quiet contemplation, perhaps thinking about the meal they'll prepare, or the children waiting for them. The air is beginning to cool now. During the day, the Egyptian sun can be brutal, baking the land with relentless heat. But as evening approaches, there's relief. The temperature becomes pleasant, almost perfect. This is when people emerge from the shade of their homes, when life along the Nile becomes most active. A group of children plays near the water's edge, splashing and laughing. Their parents watch from nearby, not worried. These children have grown up on the river. They can swim almost before they can walk. The Nile is dangerous, yes, with crocodiles lurking in the reeds and hippos emerging at night. But it's also home, familiar, part of the rhythm of their lives. As the sun sinks lower, touching the desert horizon, the light takes on a different quality. Everything becomes softer, gentler. The harsh edges of midday are gone. The palm trees that line the riverbank cast long shadows across the ground. Date palms, thick with fruit. The people here eat dates almost daily, a sweet staple of their diet. In the distance, we can see the outline of a temple. Its massive columns rise against the darkening sky, topped with capitals carved in the shape of lotus flowers and papyrus plants. These are the symbols of Upper and Lower Egypt, united under the pharaoh's rule. The temple walls are covered in hieroglyphs and painted reliefs, though from this distance we can't make out the details. We'll visit a temple later when night has fully fallen. For now, let's simply stand here and watch as day becomes night. The transformation is gradual but inevitable. The sky deepens from orange to purple to deepest blue. The first stars begin to appear, faint at first, then growing brighter as the darkness deepens. The ancient Egyptians studied these stars carefully. They knew the patterns, the movements of the celestial bodies across the sky. They used this knowledge to create their calendar, to know when the Nile would flood, to navigate both on land and water. The stars were not just beautiful to them, they were essential, tied to their gods, to their understanding of creation itself. Watch now as the sun finally disappears below the horizon. There's a moment, just a moment, where the whole world seems to hold its breath. The sky flashes brilliant crimson, then fades to dark purple. And then night arrives, gentle and complete. The Nile has changed. No longer golden, it's now a river of silver, reflecting the emerging stars. And the crescent moon has appeared in the eastern sky. The water moves slowly, peacefully, as it has for thousands of years and will continue to move for thousands more. This is the Nile at night. This is where we begin. Let's walk now, leaving the riverbank and heading into a nearby village. Our footsteps are soft on the packed earth of the path. On either side, we pass simple mud brick houses, their walls still warm from the day's sun. These homes are modest but well-made, designed to keep out the heat of the day and to shelter families at night. Through open doorways, we can glimpse the interior life of the village. In one house, a family sits together on woven reed mats, eating their evening meal. They eat with their fingers from a communal bowl, bread and vegetables, perhaps some fish from the day's catch. The bread is dark and hearty, made from emmer wheat. It's the staple food here, eaten at every meal. An oil lamp flickers in the corner of the room, providing a soft, warm light. These lamps are simple things, just clay vessels filled with oil with a wick floating in it. But they transform the darkness, creating a cozy glow that makes the mud brick walls seem almost golden. Next door, we hear the sound of laughter. A group of young people has gathered in a small courtyard, talking and joking as young people have done since the beginning of time. Some are playing a board game, perhaps Senate, moving their playing pieces. Across the distinctive board with its squares and hieroglyphs, Senate is more than just a game to the Egyptians. It has religious significance, representing the journey of the soul through the afterlife. As we continue through the village, we pass a workshop where a carpenter is putting away his tools for the night. Chisels and saws, mallets and drills, all carefully arranged on wooden shelves. Tomorrow he'll return to his work, perhaps finishing a chair or a storage chest for a wealthy client. But tonight his work is done. Nearby, a potter's workshop sits quiet. During the day, this would be a busy place, with the potter at his wheel, shaping clay into vessels of all kinds. Jars for storing grain and oil, cups for drinking beer, bowls for eating. Now the pottery sits on shelves, waiting to be fired in the kiln. Some pieces are plain and functional. Others are decorated with painted designs, geometric patterns or simple images of plants and animals. We pass a small shrine, just a niche in a wall where someone has placed offerings. Fresh lotus flowers, a small cake, a cup of beer. The Egyptians are deeply religious, and their religion is woven into every aspect of daily life. They worship many gods, each with their own responsibilities, their own domains. These offerings might be for Tauret, the hippopotamus goddess who protects women in childbirth. Or perhaps for Base, the dwarf god who guards against evil spirits and brings good luck to households. The village streets are narrow, winding between the houses in no particular pattern. There was no city planning here, no grid layout. The village grew organically. Houses added where there was space, paths following the routes people naturally took. In the darkness, these winding streets create a maze, but the villagers know every turn, every landmark. We hear a baby crying somewhere, then the gentle voice of a mother soothing it. The sound fades as we walk on. A dog barks in the distance, then falls silent. The village is settling down for the night, but it's not quiet. There are still sounds, still life. The murmur of conversation from houses we pass, the bleat of a goat from someone's small courtyard, the rustle of palm fronds in the evening breeze. The smell of the village is distinctive. There's the earthy scent of the mud bricks, mixed with smoke from cooking fires, the sweet smell of bread baking, the musky scent of livestock, and underlying it all, a hint of the river, That distinctive smell of water and vegetation and fertile soil. Above us, the stars are growing brighter. The Milky Way is clearly visible, a river of light flowing across the sky. The Egyptians call it the winding waterway, and they believe it's a celestial counterpart to the Nile. Just as the Nile gives life to Egypt, the celestial river gives life to the heavens. We come to a small open area, perhaps the village square. A few people are still out, sitting on benches or low walls, enjoying the cool evening air. Two old men play senet by lamplight, their game quiet and contemplative. Nearby, a group of women sits together, spinning flax into thread. Their spindles move rhythmically, the thread growing longer as they work and talk. A young scribe passes by, carrying his palette and brushes, his day's work finished. He nods to us politely. Scribes are respected here, members of the educated elite. They can read and write the complex hieroglyphic and hieratic scripts, skills that set them apart from the majority of the population. Tomorrow, he might be recording tax payments, or copying out a religious text, or writing a letter for someone who cannot write themselves. The night is fully dark now, and the village is beginning to sleep. Fewer voices drift from the houses. The lamps are being extinguished one by one. People are lying down on their beds, simple wooden frames strung with rope, with linen sheets and wooden headrests instead of soft pillows. Let's leave the village and continue our journey. The night is still young, and there's so much more to see. We're walking now toward the edge of the cultivated land, where the green fields, fed by the Nile's floods, meet the desert. This transition is sharp, dramatic. On one side, life and fertility. On the other, the desert, which the Egyptians call the Red Land, to distinguish it from the Black Land of the fertile Nile Valley. The path beneath our feet changes from dark soil to sand. With each step, we move further from the world of living and closer to the realm of the dead. For the Egyptians choose to build their tombs and monuments here in the desert. On the western side of the Nile, the west, where the sun sets, where it dies each day, is the direction of death and the afterlife. But there's nothing frightening about this landscape. Not tonight. The sand is cool beneath our feet. The heat of the day long since radiated away into the clear night sky. The moon has risen higher now, nearly full, and it casts enough light that we can see clearly. Our shadows stretch out long and dark behind us. The desert is not completely barren. Here and there, tough desert plants manage to survive, their roots reaching deep to find moisture. We pass a small acacia tree, its thorny branches creating intricate patterns against the starlight sky. During the day, these trees provide precious shade. Now they stand as dark silhouettes, sentinels of the desert. In the distance, we can see shapes rising from the desert floor, pyramids, even from here. Even in the darkness, they're imposing. These particular pyramids are smaller ones, tombs of nobles and officials rather than pharaohs. But they still speak of ambition, of the human desire to build something that will last, to be remembered after death. The ancient Egyptians were obsessed with death, or rather with what comes after death. They believed that life continued in the afterlife, and they prepared for it meticulously. The pyramids and tombs we see around us are not just monuments. They're eternal homes, equipped with everything the deceased might need for their journey to the afterlife and their existence there. Let's walk toward one of these structures. As we get closer, we can see more detail. This is a mastaba, an earlier form of tomb, rectangular with sloping sides. It's made of mud brick covered with white limestone plaster that gleams in the moonlight. Hieroglyphs are carved into the limestone around the entrance. Spells and prayers meant to protect the tomb and aid the deceased. We won't disturb the rest of whoever lies within. Instead, let's sit nearby, in the lee of the structure where we're sheltered from the light breeze that's picked up. The desert is remarkably peaceful at night. During the day, the sun makes it harsh, unforgiving. But now, in the cool darkness, it has a strange beauty. Listen to the silence. It's profound, deep. In the village, there were sounds, signs of life and activity. Here, there's almost nothing. Just the whisper of wind across sand. The distant cry of a night bird, perhaps a desert owl hunting for prey. The sound of our own breathing, slow and steady. The stars above us are extraordinary. With no competing light, no haze, they shine with brilliant clarity. The Egyptians saw their gods in these stars. They tracked Venus carefully, associating it with deities of beauty and war. They watched Orion, which they connected to Osiris, the god of death and resurrection. And they observed Sirius, the brightest star in the sky, whose heliacal rising signaled the beginning of the Nile's annual flood. The desert was important to the Egyptians in many ways. It provided stone for building, precious minerals and gems. Trade routes crossed it, bringing exotic goods from far-off lands. But it was also a barrier protecting Egypt from invaders. And it was a threshold, a liminal space between the world of the living and the world of the dead. If we look back toward the Nile, we can see the line of cultivation, dark against the pale sand. We can see a few lights still flickering in distant villages. But mostly, we see the shape of the land itself. The valley carved by the river over millions of years. And if we look east, toward the far side of the valley, we can just make out the darkness of the eastern desert, the red land on the other side of the black land. Beyond that desert lies the Red Sea, and beyond the sea lies the mysterious lands the Egyptians called Punt, sources of incense and exotic animals. But tonight we don't need to go so far. Tonight, we're here in the western desert, in the realm of Osiris and Anubis, surrounded by the dead who sleep in their eternal homes. The moon continues its slow journey. Across the sky, time moves differently here. Without the rhythms of daily life, without clocks or schedules, we measure time by the movement of celestial bodies, by the gradual cooling of the air, by our own internal sense of the hours passing. Let's sit here a while longer. Let the peace of this place sink into you. Imagine the generations that have passed, the thousands of years that these monuments have stood here, watching over the desert. Imagine the people who built them, who carved the hieroglyphs, who laid the deceased to rest with such care and ceremony. Ancient Egyptians believe that if your name was remembered, if someone spoke it, you continued to live in some way. All these people in their tombs around us, their names carved in stone, are still alive in memory, still present, in a sense, when we acknowledge them, feel the connection across time. We're separated by millennia, but we're not so different. The people who built these tombs loved and hoped and feared just as we do. They wanted to be remembered. They wanted their lives to have meaning. And here we are, thousands of years later, remembering them. It's time to move on. We rise from where we've been sitting and turn back toward the Nile Valley. We're going to visit Temple now, one of the great temples built to honor the gods. As we walk, the sand gradually gives way to cultivated land again. We cross through fields where grain grows, though we can't see it clearly in the darkness. During the day, these fields would be golden with wheat and barley, but now they're just dark shapes, rustling softly in the breeze. We reach a paved road, one of the processional ways that connects the temple to the river. This road is wide and well maintained, made of large stone blocks, fitted together with impressive precision. Along both sides stand sphinx, lion bodies with ram's heads, symbols of the god Amun-Ra. There are dozens of them, perhaps hundreds, creating an avenue of stone guardians that leads directly to the temple's entrance. The sphinx are magnificent even in the moonlight. Each one is carefully carved, the details of their faces and bodies still sharp despite years of wind and sun. They face inward, toward the processional way, eternally watching those who walk this sacred path. As we continue along the avenue, the temple comes into view ahead of us. And what a sight it is. Massive pylons, the gateway towers that mark the temple's entrance, rise into the night sky. They're enormous, dwarfing any human scale. The walls slope inward slightly, creating a sense of immense stability and permanence. They're covered in carved reliefs, though we'll need to get closer to see them clearly. Between the two pylons is the actual entrance, a doorway that seems small compared to the massive structures flanking it. Two enormous flagpoles stand in sockets in front of the pylons, though the flags themselves hang limp in the still night air. During religious festivals, these flags would flutter in the wind, bright banners announcing the celebration. In front of the temple, there's an open courtyard. Even at this late hour, we're not completely alone. A few priests move quietly about their duties. The gods don't sleep, and so the temple is never completely inactive. There are always rituals to perform, offerings to make, prayers to speak. One priest passes near us, carrying a censer from which fragrant smoke rises. Incense, perhaps myrrh or frankincense, imported from far away at great expense. The smoke curls in the still air, and the scent is rich and resinous, exotic and expensive. This is the smell of sanctity, of divine presence. The priest is dressed simply in white linen, ritually pure. His head is shaved, as are all parts of his body. This is required for priests, a sign of their purity and dedication to the gods. He walks with measured steps, focused on his task. He doesn't acknowledge us. In this sacred space, at this sacred hour, he's performing a ritual that's been performed the same way for generations. Let's approach the entrance. The reliefs on the pylons are clearer now. They show the pharaoh in his role as the chief priest of Egypt, the intermediary between the gods and humanity. Here he is shown smiting enemies, demonstrating his power and his protection of Egypt. There he is presenting offerings to the gods, fulfilling his sacred duties. The figures are enormous. The pharaoh depicted much larger than the enemies and attendants around him, showing his importance and divine status. The hieroglyphs carved into the stone tell us which pharaoh built this pylon, which gods are honored here, what victories are being commemorated. Even if we can't read them, we can appreciate their beauty, the way they're arranged in vertical columns and horizontal rows, creating patterns that are both writing and art. We pass between the pylons and enter the first courtyard. This is a public space, or at least accessible to those who are ritually pure. The courtyard is surrounded by columns, creating a covered colonnade on all four sides. The columns are massive, carved in the shape of papyrus bundles, their capitals spreading out at the top like the umbels of the papyrus plant. In the center of the courtyard, open to the sky, there's an altar. During the day, this is where some public rituals would take place, where offerings would be made. Now it sits empty, cleaned, and ready for tomorrow's ceremonies. The moonlight creates strong shadows in the colonnade. The columns appear almost black against the slightly lighter darkness beyond them. Walking through this space feels like moving through a forest of stone that will never die, never decay. We continue deeper into the temple, passing through another smaller doorway. Beyond this point, access becomes more restricted. This hypo-style hall, with its forest of columns supporting a massive roof, would be accessible only to priests and, on special occasions, to the pharaoh himself. The ceiling of the hypo-style hall is painted, though in the darkness we can't see the colors clearly. Images of stars, representations of the sky goddess Nut, her body arching across the heavens. During the day, light would enter through small clerestory windows high up on the walls, creating dramatic shafts of illumination. Now, a few oil lamps provide the only light, their small flames creating pools of warm glow that barely penetrate the vast darkness of the space. The columns here are even more impressive than those in the courtyard. They're gigantic, so large that it would take several people linking hands to encircle one. They rise up into the darkness, their capitals carved to represent lotus flowers or papyrus plants, symbols of rebirth and creation. Walking between these columns, we feel very small. That's intentional. Temples are designed to inspire awe, to make humans aware of their insignificance compared to the gods. And it works. Even thousands of years later, even in the darkness, this space commands respect. The air here is different from outside. It's cooler, protected from the sun during the day and now holding that coolness into the night. There's a smell of incense and oil, of stone and sanctity. This is a space set apart from the ordinary world, dedicated entirely to the divine. We continue deeper into the temple, moving through increasingly restricted spaces. Each chamber we pass through is smaller than the last, darker, more sacred. The floor slopes gradually upward, and the ceiling becomes lower. We're approaching the heart of the temple, the sanctuary where the god's cult statue resides. A priest emerges from a side chamber, carrying a small lamp. By its light, we can see the walls around us more clearly. They're covered entirely in carved and painted reliefs. Every surface is decorated, every inch of wall space used to tell stories, to record rituals, to honor the gods. Here, the pharaoh offers food to the god. There, he performs a ritual purification. In this scene, the god grants him long life and prosperity. The images are formal, stylized, following conventions that have been established for centuries. But they're also beautiful, with a grace and elegance that transcends their formulaic nature. The hieroglyphs that accompany, the images are carved deeply into the stone and then painted. Blues and reds, yellows and greens, the colors still vivid after all these years. During the day, they would be bright and clear. Even now, by lamplight, they glow softly. We reach the sanctuary, the holiest place in a temple. This is where the cult statue of a god resides, housed in a shrine. The door to the shrine is closed now, sealed. The statue within is hidden, as it is every night after the evening ritual has been completed. These statues are not just representations of the gods. The Egyptians believe that the gods actually inhabit them, that through proper rituals, the divine presence can be invoked into the statue. So the statue is treated with the same respect and care that would be given to the god himself. Each morning, the high priest opens the shrine and performs the ritual of awakening the god. He washes the statue, dresses it in fine linen, applies perfume and cosmetics, presents offerings of food and drink. These rituals mirror the way a wealthy Egyptian would be attended to in the morning, because the gods are thought to have the same needs and desires as humans, only on a grander scale. In the evening, there's a similar ritual, preparing the god for the night. The statue is cleaned again, offerings are presented, prayers are spoken. Then the shrine is sealed, and the god is left to rest until morning. The sanctuary is a small room, much smaller than the vast spaces we passed through to get here. But it's the most important place in the entire temple. Everything else exists to serve this room, to support the rituals performed here. Around the sanctuary are various smaller chambers, storerooms and preparation rooms. In one, we can glimpse shelves holding ritual implements, censers and offering bowls, sacred vessels made of gold and silver, linen cloth for dressing the statue, jars of perfumed oils and unguents. In another room, there are scrolls, papyrus documents containing hymns and prayers, detailed instructions for performing rituals. The knowledge of how to properly serve the gods is carefully preserved in writing, passed down from one generation of priests to the next. Let's make our way back through the temple, retracing our steps through the hypostyle hall, through the courtyard, back to the entrance. As we go, we pass other priests going about their nightly duties. One is lighting fresh lamps, replacing those that have burned low. Another is checking the offerings that have been left, ensuring that everything is in order. The temple operates on a strict schedule. The same rituals performed at the same times every day, year after year, generation after generation. There's something comforting about this continuity, this unchanging rhythm in a world that otherwise is always changing. We emerge from the temple into the open air of the courtyard. The night sky is brilliant above us, the Milky Way clearly visible. Inside the temple, in those enclosed, darkened spaces, it was easy to lose sense of time and place. But here, under the stars, we're reminded of where we are, of the vast cosmos that surrounds this small human world. Before we leave the temple completely, let's walk around to the side, where there's a sacred lake. Most large temples have these rectangular pools used for ritual purification. The water is dark and still, reflecting the stars like a mirror. Priests bathe in this water before performing rituals, washing away impurity and preparing themselves to stand in the presence of the gods. The edge of the lake is lined with stone. We sit here for a moment, looking out across the water. In the daylight, this would be a busy place, with priests coming and going, performing ablutions. Now it's peaceful, silent except for the gentle lap of water against stone. There's something timeless about this scene, water and stone and starlight. These elements have existed since before humans walked the earth. and they'll continue long after we're gone. The ancient Egyptians understood this. They built in stone, seeking to create works that would endure, and they succeeded. These temples have stood for thousands of years and will stand for thousands more. Looking at the temple from this angle, we can see its massive bulk rising against the night sky. It's a mountain of stone, a mountain shaped by human hands into a dwelling place for the gods. The amount of labor that went into creating this is almost incomprehensible. Thousands of workers, years of effort, vast resources, all dedicated to honoring the divine. But it's more than just a building. It's a statement of belief, of faith in something greater than oneself. It's a testament to the human need to connect with the divine, to create sacred space, to mark the world with monuments to meaning and purpose. The temple reminds us that the ancient Egyptians didn't see a separation between the sacred and the secular. Religion was woven into every aspect of life. The pharaoh was both king and high priest. The state and the temple were intertwined. The gods were involved in everything from the flooding of the Nile to victory and battle to a successful harvest. As we sit here by the sacred lake, let that sense of the sacred seep into you. Not any particular doctrine or dogma, but simply an awareness of mystery, of the profound questions about existence and meaning that humans have always asked. The ancient Egyptians had their answers, expressed in their myths and rituals and monuments. We may have different answers, but the questions remain the same. Let's leave the temple now and travel to a different kind of place. We're going to visit a workers' village, specifically the village of the men who build and decorate the royal tombs in the Valley of the Kings. This village is called Setmat, the place of truth, though modern archaeologists know it as Deir el-Medina. It's located in a small valley in the desert hills, isolated from the main settlements along the Nile. This isolation is intentional. The men who work on the royal tombs know secrets that must be kept. They know where the tombs are located, what treasures they contain, how to bypass their security features. So they and their families live apart in this small, protected community. As we approach the village, we can see it's surrounded by a wall. The wall isn't very high, more symbolic than defensive, marking the boundary of the community. We enter through the main gate, passing from the empty desert into a narrow street lined with small houses. The layout of the village is orderly, much more so than the village we visited earlier. The houses are all roughly the same size, built in long rows with shared walls. Each house has a similar floor plan, a small entrance area, a larger room for living and entertaining, a smaller room behind that, and a kitchen courtyard at the back. The street is empty at this hour, everyone inside sleeping. These men work hard, spending 8 days out of every 10 inside the royal tombs, carving and painting in the dim light of oil lamps. On their days off, they rest, spend time with their families, work on their own tomb projects. The villagers here are entitled to have tombs themselves, smaller than the royal tombs they build, but still elaborately decorated. It's one of the privileges of their position. We pass house after house, all dark and quiet. Through one window, we can hear soft snoring. Through another, nothing at all. These are solid houses, well built. The workers here are not slaves, as is sometimes imagined. They're highly skilled craftsmen, well paid for their expertise. They receive rations of grain, oil, and beer. They're provided with tools and materials. They have rights, can own property, can bring complaints to court if they're treated unfairly. Let's look into one of the houses more closely. The front room has low benches built into the walls, places for sitting or sleeping. There's a small household shrine in one corner, a niche in the wall where offerings can be made to the family's ancestors and favored gods. Someone has placed flowers there recently, and a small clay figurine of a god or goddess. The walls are plastered and painted white, though over time they've absorbed smoke from the lamps and cooking fires, giving them a slightly gray tone. The ceiling is made of split, palm logs covered with woven reed mats, and a layer of mud plaster. It's not high, perhaps 7 or 8 feet, but adequate. In the back room, the sleeping area, we can see pallets on the floor where the family members sleep, woven reed mats, perhaps a thin linen cushion. The Egyptians don't use soft beds as we understand them. Instead, they have headrests, shaped pieces of wood or stone that cradle the neck and keep the head elevated. It seems uncomfortable to us, but they're accustomed to it. The kitchen courtyard is open to the sky. Here, during the day, cooking would be done over a small hearth. Bread would be baked, vegetables cooked, beer brewed. Now the hearth is cold, the cooking implements put away. A large storage jar sits in one corner, sealed with a clay stopper. It probably contains grain, the staple food that makes up the majority of the workers' rations. Leaving this house, we continue through the village. Near the center, there's a larger building, a temple or chapel where the community can worship together. It's dedicated to several gods, but particularly to the deified pharaoh Amenhotep I, who is considered the patron of this village. The workers pray to him for protection and success in their work. Beyond the houses, we climb a path that leads up the hillside behind the village. All along this slope, we can see the entrances to tombs. These are the private tombs of the workers, some modest, some quite elaborate. The men who spend their working lives creating tombs for the pharaohs naturally want fine tombs for themselves as well. Some of these tombs are small, just a single chamber with a pit for the burial. Others are more complex, with multiple rooms decorated with painted scenes. The themes are similar to those in the royal tombs, just on a smaller scale. The journey to the afterlife, the judgment of the soul, the blessed existence in the field of reeds where the dead would live eternally. One tomb entrance stands open, and we can see flickering light within. Someone is working late, perhaps finishing the decoration of their family tomb by lamplight. We hear the soft tap-tap of a chisel on stone, the quiet concentration of someone absorbed in their work. We don't disturb them, but continue climbing. From higher up the slope, we have a view of the entire village laid out below us. It's a small community, perhaps 60 to 70 houses. In the moonlight, we can see the regularity of the layout. The straight streets, the uniform houses. It looks almost like a modern planned community, which in a sense it is. This village was built for a specific purpose, to house these workers. And it was built all at once according to a predetermined plan. Beyond the village, we can see the desert stretching away, pale in the moonlight. And far in the distance, we can just make out the dark line of the Nile Valley. The cultivated land, the world of the living. Here, perched between the desert and the hills, the village feels isolated, separate. It exists in its own small world, dedicated to its unique purpose. The silence up here is profound. During the day, this hillside would echo with the sounds of chiseling and hammering from the various tomb projects. But now, in the deep of night, there's only the whisper of wind across stone and sand. It's a peaceful sound, timeless and eternal. Let's make our way back down to the village. As we descend, we pass more tomb entrances, dark rectangles in the pale stone of the hillside. Each one represents years of work, a family's investment in their eternal future. Some are finished, their entrance is sealed. Others are still in progress, waiting for the next day's work to continue. Now, we're going to journey to the most famous burial ground in all of Egypt, the Valley of the Kings. This is where the pharaohs of the New Kingdom are laid to rest, in tombs carved deep into the rock of the Theban Hills. It's a place of supreme importance, guarded carefully, kept secret from all but those who need to know its location. The journey takes us deeper into the western desert, following a winding path through the hills. The landscape here is stark, dramatic. Tall cliffs of limestone rise on either side of us, their faces carved by wind and time into strange shapes and patterns. In the moonlight, they look almost like the work of giants, massive sculptures created by supernatural beings. The path is well-worn, but not obvious. You'd need to know where you were going to find it. This is intentional. The royal tombs must be protected from robbers, from anyone who would disturb the pharaohs. Eternal rest and steal the treasures buried with him. As we round a final bend, the valley opens before us. It's a natural amphitheater in the mountains, a hidden place surrounded on all sides by steep cliffs. The floor of the valley is relatively flat, covered in pale limestone chips and gravel. And scattered across this floor, nearly invisible unless you know what to look for, are the entrances to the royal tombs. Some entrances are just dark rectangles cut into the rock face of the cliffs. Others are accessed by descending staircases that cut down into the valley floor. All of them are sealed now, their doorways filled with rubble and plaster. Then stamped with the seal of the necropolis, the official mark that shows the tomb has been properly closed and is. Under the protection of the state, guards are stationed here, even at night. We can see them at their post near the main entrance to the valley, a small shelter where they can sit and watch. They're armed with spears and clubs, ready to defend against any tomb robbers who might attempt to breach the seals. Tomb robbery is a serious problem in ancient Egypt. The treasures buried with the pharaohs are worth fortunes, and there are always those desperate or greedy enough to risk the severe penalties for being caught. The guards nod to us as we pass. They're used to priests and officials coming and going, especially during the 70 days of mummification and the funeral processions that bring the royal dead to their final resting places. Tonight is quiet though. No ceremonies, no processions. Just the regular night watch, ensuring that the royal dead sleep undisturbed. Let's approach one of the tomb entrances. We won't go inside, that would be sacrilege, but we can examine the entrance itself. The doorway is cut with precision into the living rock. The edges are sharp, clean. The ancient Egyptian masons were masters of their craft, able to work stone with incredible accuracy. Above the door, there would normally be carved inscriptions and royal cartouches, the oval frames that contain the pharaoh's name. But these have been covered by the plaster seal, hidden away, protected. When a tomb is sealed, it's meant to remain sealed for eternity. The seal itself is stamped repeatedly across the plaster. An image of Anubis, the jackal-headed god of mummification and the dead, above 9 bound captives representing the enemies of Egypt. This seal is a powerful symbol. It shows that this tomb is under divine protection, that anyone who breaks this seal is not just committing a crime against the state, but an offense against the gods themselves. Standing here at the entrance, we can feel the weight of what lies beyond, not just the physical weight of the stone, the hundreds of tons of rock that make up this mountain, but the spiritual weight. A god king lies within, a pharaoh who in life was the living embodiment of Horus, the connection between heaven and earth. In death, he has become Osiris, lord of the afterlife, a god among gods. The tomb extends deep into the mountain, far deeper than we might expect. These aren't simple chambers, they're elaborate complexes. Corridors and staircases descending into the earth, opening into rooms and halls, some large enough to hold dozens of people. The walls of these chambers are covered entirely with painted reliefs, some of the finest art ever created by human hands. The paintings tell stories, religious texts that guide the deceased pharaoh through the dangerous journey to the afterlife. The Book of the Dead, the Amduat, the Book of Gates, these are collections of spells and instructions, maps of the underworld, descriptions of the trials the soul must pass to reach eternal life. Imagine the work that went into creating these tombs. First, the stone cutters, working by lamplight in the narrow confines of the growing tunnel, cutting away the limestone inch by inch, ton by ton. The stone is hauled out in baskets, carried up the stairs and corridors, dumped outside. It takes years just to excavate the basic structure of the tomb. Then come the plasterers, smoothing the rough stone walls, creating a perfect surface for painting. They mix their plaster carefully, getting just the right consistency, applying it evenly. Every surface must be prepared, from floor to ceiling, every inch of every wall. And then finally the artists. These are the same skilled craftsmen we saw in the workers' village. They begin by sketching the designs in red ochre, laying out the compositions, the placement of figures and hieroglyphs. A master artist checks their work, making corrections in black. And then they paint, using mineral pigments mixed with water and gum. Red and yellow ochre, black from soot or manganese, white from gypsum or huntite, blue from copper or azurite, green from malachite. These colors, properly prepared and applied, will last for thousands of years. The scenes they paint are formulaic in some ways, following established conventions. but they're also beautiful, filled with detail and care. Here's the pharaoh being welcomed by the gods. There he is, transformed, sailing through the 12 hours of night in the solar bark, the boat of the sun god. In this scene, he faces the serpent Apophis, the embodiment of chaos, and overcomes it. In that one, he stands in the hall of judgment, his heart being weighed against the feather of Mao, truth and justice. All of this is hidden now, sealed behind stone and plaster, kept secret in the darkness. The ancient Egyptians believed that these paintings had power, that they were not just decorative but functional. By painting the pharaohs successfully navigating the afterlife, they were helping to make it so. The image and the reality were connected, almost identical. We move away from this tomb entrance and walk deeper into the valley. The cliffs around us rise high, blocking out much of the sky. But straight above, we can still see the stars, that river of light flowing across the heavens. There are dozens of tombs here, though not all of them belong to pharaohs. Some are queens' tombs. Others belong to royal children, princes, and princesses who died young. Each tomb is a monument to loss, to grief, to the human desire to preserve and protect those we love even after death. One section of the valley is lower than the rest, and during rare desert rains, water flows through here, a temporary stream that appears and then vanishes. The tombs built in this area have suffered from flood damage over the centuries, water seeping in through cracks, damaging the paintings, dissolving the plaster. It's a reminder that even here, in this carefully chosen location, nature has its say. Nothing human-made, no matter how carefully planned, is entirely immune to the passage of time. But most of the tombs have survived remarkably well. The dry desert air preserves things that would decay in damper climates. Wood remains intact. Paint stays bright. Even linen wrappings and papyrus scrolls can survive for thousands of years here, protected from moisture and rot. Let's climb a bit, up a path that leads to a higher vantage point. From here, we can look down across the valley, seeing its entire layout. In the moonlight, it's hauntingly beautiful. The pale stone, the deep shadows, the scattered dark rectangles of tomb entrances. This is a city of the dead, a necropolis in the truest sense. During the funeral of a pharaoh, this valley would be filled with people. The funeral procession would wind its way through the hills, priests and nobles, family members and officials, all following the sledge that carries the pharaoh's mummy in its nested coffins. There would be professional mourners, women hired to wail and tear their clothes, to beat their breasts and throw dust on their heads. The Egyptians believed that the dead need to be properly mourned. That excessive grief helped assure the deceased successfully reaches the afterlife. The procession would include bearers carrying all the goods to be buried with the pharaoh, furniture and clothing, jewelry and cosmetics, weapons and tools, food and drink for the journey, shapi figures, small servant statues that would magically come to life in the afterlife to do any work required of the deceased, everything needed for eternal life. At the tomb entrance, final rituals would be performed. The most important is the opening of the mouth ceremony, a ritual that restores the mummy's ability to eat, drink, breathe, and speak in the afterlife. A priest wearing the mask of Anubis would touch ritual, implements to the mummy's mouth and eyes, reciting spells, making offerings. This ceremony transforms the mummy from a dead body into a living being, ready for eternal existence. And then the pharaoh would be carried down into his tomb, placed in his sarcophagus in the burial chamber deep underground. The tomb would be filled with all his grave goods, arranged carefully in the various chambers and corridors. And finally, the tomb would be sealed, the entrance filled with rubble, plastered over, stamped with seals. And the pharaoh would be left to sleep, guarded by magic and gods and the desert itself. Standing here in the Valley of the Kings at night, we're standing at the intersection of life and death, time and eternity. The pharaohs sleep below, and above, life continues. The Nile floods and recedes. Crops are planted and harvested. Children are born and grow old. Empires rise and fall. But here, in these tombs, time has stopped, The pharaohs remain as they were laid to rest, waiting for the moment when the gods call them forth to eternal life. The stars wheel slowly overhead. The moon continues its journey across the sky. Soon, in a few hours, the sun will rise again, beginning a new day. But for now, in this moment, we exist in the timeless darkness, surrounded by the works and dreams of the ancient dead. It's time to leave the valley of the dead and return to the world of the living. We make our way back through the winding paths, through the desert hills, toward the Nile and the great city of Thebes. We're going to visit the royal palace, the residence of the pharaoh himself. The palace complex is enormous, sprawling across a large area, the east bank of the Nile. It's not just a single building, but many buildings. Courtyards, gardens, all surrounded by high walls. This is both a residence and an administrative center, the heart of the Egyptian government. As we approach the palace walls, we can see guards stationed at the gates. The palace is always protected, day and night. The pharaoh's safety is paramount. These guards are professional soldiers, well-trained and well-equipped. They wear kilts of leather or heavy linen, and they carry spears and shields. Some have bronze swords at their belts. But tonight is peaceful. There's no threat, no danger. The guards are alert but relaxed, occasionally chatting quietly among themselves. One is telling a story, something about his village and a troublesome crocodile. The others listen, occasionally laughing or making comments. We're known here, recognized. Perhaps we're officials or priests, people with legitimate reason to be at the palace even at this late hour. The guards nod to us, respectfully, and allow us to pass through the gate into the outer courtyard. This courtyard is large and open, paved with stone. During the day, it would be busy with people coming and going, petitioners seeking audience with the pharaoh or his officials, scribes hurrying between offices with important documents, servants carrying supplies. Now it's quiet, empty except for a few night watchmen making their rounds. We cross the courtyard and enter the palace proper through another, more ornate gateway. Inside, the architecture becomes more elaborate. We're in a columned hall, the ceiling supported by painted columns shaped like lotus flowers. The floor is decorated with painted scenes of plants and animals, fish and birds, creating the illusion of walking through a marsh or garden. Even at night, the palace maintains a certain level of activity. We pass servants, moving quietly about their duties. One is lighting fresh oil lamps, replacing those that have burned low. Another is carrying a tray, perhaps bringing a late-night refreshment to someone still awake and working. The walls here are covered with painted plaster, showing scenes of the pharaoh in his various roles. Here he is receiving tribute from foreign lands, delegates from Nubia and Punt, from the lands of the Levant and beyond, all bringing exotic goods and bowing before Egypt's mighty ruler. There he is hunting, shown larger than life, shooting arrows from his chariot at fleeing lions or wild bulls. We move through several more rooms and corridors, each more private than the last. The decoration becomes richer, more elaborate. The floors are covered with woven mats. Precious woods have been used for door frames and furniture. Gold leaf gleams on ceiling beams and column capitals. In one room, we glimpse a group of scribes still at work, even at this hour. They sit cross-legged on the floor, their papyrus scrolls spread before them, writing by lamplight. The administration of Egypt never truly stops. There are always accounts to keep, letters to write, documents to copy. One scribe is working on a letter to a provincial governor, dictating instructions about tax collection. Another is copying a religious text, his hieratic script flowing smoothly across the papyrus. A third is doing mathematical calculations, working out the amount of grain needed to feed the workers on a construction project. These men are the backbone of the Egyptian state. They're educated, literate, skilled in writing and mathematics. They come from good families, have gone through years of training, copying texts and practicing their writing until they achieved mastery. Now they serve the pharaoh and the state, and in return, they enjoy comfortable lives, respect, and the opportunity to rise to positions of real power and influence. We continue on, entering the residential section of the palace. Here, the rooms are more intimate, designed for living rather than ceremony or administration. We pass sleeping chambers where servants and lesser officials rest. We pass storage rooms filled with linens and clothing, cosmetics and perfumes. And then we reach the more exclusive areas where the royal family resides. We're moving carefully now, quietly. This is the most private part of the palace, and we're here as observers only, respectful of the sanctity of these spaces. Through an open doorway, we can see into a garden courtyard, one of several within the palace complex. Even in the darkness, we can make out the shapes of trees and plants, carefully tended gardens that provide beauty and coolness. There's a pool in the center, rectangular, its surface reflecting the stars. The sound of water trickling from a small fountain is peaceful, soothing. Gardens are important in Egypt, valued not just for their beauty, but for the respite they provide from the heat and aridity of the desert climate. The wealthy dedicate significant resources to creating and maintaining them, importing trees and plants from far away, designing complex irrigation systems to keep them watered. We skirt around the garden and approach the royal apartments. These are the private chambers of the pharaoh and his family. The rooms are richly appointed with furniture of the finest quality. Chairs and beds of ebony inlaid with ivory and gold. Chests of cedar wood. Linen curtains to provide privacy and keep out insects. In one chamber, we can see the pharaoh's personal belongings. His crowns and ceremonial regalia, when he's not wearing them, are kept here in special shrines. The white crown of Upper Egypt, the red crown of Lower Egypt, and the double crown that represents his rule over the entire land. Also the blue war crown, the ceremonial beard, the crook and flail, symbols of his authority. There are also more personal items. His favorite staff, a bow he uses for hunting, board games for entertainment. The pharaoh is a god, yes, but he's also a man with human interests and pleasures. We move on, reaching what must be the pharaoh's bedchamber. The door is closed, but we can see light flickering beneath it. Someone is awake in there, perhaps the pharaoh himself, perhaps unable to sleep, reading by lamplight or simply thinking about the burdens and responsibilities of his position. Being pharaoh is not easy. He is responsible for all of Egypt, for the well-being of millions of people. He must ensure the Nile floods properly each year, that crops grow abundantly, that Egypt is protected from its enemies. He must build and maintain temples, ensure the gods are properly honored, lead the army in battle when necessary, dispense justice, oversee massive construction projects. The ancient Egyptians believed that the pharaoh is the living embodiment of Horus, the falcon god, son of Osiris and Isis. He is divine, a god walking the earth in human form. When he dies, he will become Osiris, joining the gods in eternity. But while he lives, he must fulfill his sacred duties, maintaining Maat, the cosmic order that keeps chaos at bay. It's an enormous burden. Is it any wonder that the pharaoh might lie awake at night sometimes, thinking about all that rests on his shoulders? We quietly move away from the royal chambers, not wishing to disturb whoever is awake within. As we make our way back through the palace, we pass through a different section where the royal women reside. The pharaoh has several wives, as is customary for kings. His great royal wife, the chief queen, has her own apartments, richly decorated and staffed with servants. She is a powerful figure in her own right, often involved in religious ceremonies and state affairs. Some queens have even ruled as pharaohs themselves when circumstances required it. There are also the secondary wives, women from noble Egyptian families or foreign princesses sent to Egypt as part of diplomatic alliances. Each has her own status, her own household within the palace. And there are the royal children, princes and princesses being raised to understand their special position, their responsibilities to their divine family and to Egypt itself. In one room, we glimpse a nursery where the younger royal children sleep, watched over by nurses and servants. Even in sleep, these children are being prepared for their future roles. The princes will need to learn how to lead, to command armies, to perform religious rituals. The princesses will need to understand court politics, religious duties, the subtle arts of influence and diplomacy. The palace is like a small city unto itself, with its own rhythm, its own hierarchy, its own world. Hundreds of people live and work here, from the highest nobles to the lowest servants. All of them are connected to the pharaoh, all of them playing their part in the grand machinery of the Egyptian state. As we make our way toward an exit, we pass through the palace kitchens. Even at night, there's some activity here. Bread is being prepared for tomorrow's meals, dough set aside to rise. Someone is checking on stored foods, ensuring nothing has spoiled. The kitchens are extensive, designed to feed not just the royal family, but the large palace staff and any guests or visitors. The smells here are wonderful. Fresh bread, herbs and spices, beer fermenting in large jars. The Egyptians are skilled at food preparation, creating dishes that are both nourishing and delicious. They eat bread and beer as staples, supplemented with vegetables like onions and garlic, lettuce and cucumbers. Meat when it's available, usually from domesticated animals like cattle, sheep, and goats, though the wealthy also enjoy game birds. And fish from the Nile, fruits like dates and figs, melons and pomegranates. For the royal family, meals are elaborate affairs, with multiple courses and a wide variety of dishes. Foreign delicacies are imported at great expense. The pharaoh's table showcases Egypt's wealth and the far reach of its trade networks. We exit the palace through a side gate, emerging into a smaller courtyard. Above us, the stars are beginning to fade slightly. It's still hours until dawn, but the deepest part of the night has passed. Time is moving on as it always does, unstoppable and relentless. From here, we have a view across part of the city of Thebes, the capital of Egypt during this period. Thebes is one of the greatest cities in the ancient world. Even at it's not entirely dark. Here and there, we can see the flicker of lamps and fires, signs of life and activity. Let's make our way down to the river. The Nile runs through the heart of Thebes, and even at night, it's never completely deserted. The river is the highway of Egypt, the main route for transporting goods and people up and down the length of the country. As we approach the riverbank, we can see several boats moored there, tied to wooden posts driven into the mud. These are cargo vessels waiting for morning to continue their journeys. During the day, the Nile is busy with traffic, boats sailing north with the current, boats rowing or sailing south against it, taking advantage of the prevailing winds that usually blow from the north. The boats themselves are marvels of ancient engineering. The Egyptians have been building boats for thousands of years, perfecting their designs. Most are made from wood, planks carefully shaped and fitted together, sealed with pitch or resin to make them watertight. The largest boats can carry enormous cargoes, tons of stone or grain, herds of cattle, whatever needs to be transported. Some boats have sails, large rectangular sails, made of linen that can catch the wind and drive the boat forward. Others rely on oars, banks of rowers working in rhythm to propel the vessel through the water. And some use both sails when the wind is favorable, oars when it's not. We walk along the riverbank, our feet sinking slightly into the soft mud. During the flood season, the river rises significantly, covering this bank and spreading out across the floodplain. But now, in this season, the water level is lower and the bank is exposed. Ahead, we see a smaller boat approaching the shore. It's a fishing boat, returning from a night's work. Fishing at night is common here, the cool darkness making it more comfortable to work. And some fish are more easily caught at night. The boat glides up to the bank, and the fishermen jump out, pulling it onto the mud so it won't drift away. They're hauling in their catch, baskets full of fish. Nile perch, catfish, tilapia. The fish are still alive, flopping and wriggling in the baskets. The fishermen work quickly, sorting them, keeping the best ones, throwing back the small ones to grow larger. These men have been fishing all night, and they're tired but satisfied. It's been a good catch. They'll take the fish to market at dawn, selling them fresh to the people of Thebes. Fish is an important part of the Egyptian diet, a source of protein for those who can't afford meat regularly. One of the fishermen notices us and nods a greeting. His hands are rough from years of working with nets and lines. His skin is darkened by the sun, his body lean and muscular from the physical demands of his work. He's smiling, pleased with the night's results. We exchange a few words asking about the fishing. He tells us it's been excellent. The fish are running well this season, He mentions the phases of the moon, how they affect the fish's behavior, like farmers knowing the best times to plant and harvest. Fishermen understand the rhythms of the river, the patterns that govern when fish feed and spawn. Leaving the fishermen to their work, we continue along the riverbank. The path here is well worn, used by countless people over countless years. How many feet have walked this same route? How many generations have lived beside this river, depending on it for their survival? We pass a small shrine, just a niche cut into a rock outcropping near the water's edge. Inside, there's a simple offering. Some flowers and bread. This shrine is dedicated to Hapi, the god of the annual flood. The Egyptians don't think of the Nile itself as a god, but they do deify the flood, recognizing its crucial importance to their civilization. Every year, they watch anxiously for signs that the flood is coming. If it comes too early or too late, too strong or too weak, it can spell disaster. Too much water in villages are swept away, crops destroyed. Too little, and there's not enough moisture in the soil for plants to grow, leading to famine. But when the flood is just right, when Hapi is generous and kind, Egypt prospers. The crops grow abundantly. There's food for everyone and life is good. The current flood has been good. We can tell from the height of the watermarks on the rocks and buildings. Near the shore, the fields will be fertile this year. The harvest will be abundant. It's a blessing, a gift from the gods. And people are grateful. As we walk, we can see across the river to the western bank. Over there in the darkness lie the temples and tombs we visited earlier. The Valley of the Kings, the workers' village, the vast necropolises where generations of Egyptians are laid to rest. The west bank is the land of the dead. While here on the east, we're in the land of the living. But the boundary is not absolute. The dead are always with the Egyptians. Remembered and honored, families make offerings at tombs. Speak the names of ancestors. Keep their memory alive. The dead, in turn, watch over the living, providing guidance and protection from the afterlife. Further along the riverbank, we come to the remains of a fire, still smoldering slightly. Someone was here earlier, perhaps cooking a meal or simply warming themselves. The night can get surprisingly cool, especially during certain seasons. A fire provides comfort, light, warmth, a gathering place for conversation and companionship. Near the fire, someone has left behind a water jar, forgotten or abandoned. We pick it up. It's a simple clay vessel, roughly made, the kind produced by thousands of potters across Egypt. It's been used. We can see scratches and stains on its surface. This jar has a history, has served its purpose of carrying water from the river to someone's home or workplace. Now it sits here, waiting. Perhaps its owner will return for it. Perhaps it will remain here, eventually breaking down, returning to the earth from which it came. Everything has a life cycle. Objects, people, civilization. They come into being, serve their purpose, and eventually pass away. But while they exist, they matter. This simple jar mattered to whoever made it, whoever used it. It fulfilled a need, played a small but real role in someone's life. We set the jar down carefully and continue our walk. The river flows beside us, constant and eternal. This river has been here since before humans walked the earth, and it will continue long after our civilizations have crumbled to dust. There's something humbling about that, but also something comforting. We are part of something larger than ourselves, connected to the great cycles of nature and time. In the water, we can see movement, fish surfacing, creating ripples. Further out, a hippo surfaces briefly, its nostrils and eyes above water, then submerges again. Hippos are dangerous animals, aggressive and territorial. The Egyptians respect them, fear them, and also hunt them. Hippopotamus hunts are significant events, almost ceremonial, with pharaohs and nobles participating. The goddess Taret, protector of women and children, is depicted as a pregnant hippopotamus standing upright. So even this dangerous animal has its divine aspect. Its connection to the sacred realm. A bird calls from somewhere across the water, a sharp cry that echoes in the night. Another answers. The Nile is rich with bird life, waterfowl of all kinds making their homes in the reeds and marshes along its banks. Herons and ibises, ducks and geese. The Egyptians hunt these birds for food and use their feathers for various purposes. Some birds are sacred. associated with particular gods. The ibis, for example, is sacred to Thoth, the god of writing and wisdom. Killing an ibis is forbidden, a serious offense. The Egyptians even mummify ibises, just as they do with humans, and bury them in special cemeteries dedicated to these sacred birds. We've been walking for some time now, following the curve of the river as it winds through the landscape. The bank rises and falls, sometimes sandy, sometimes muddy, sometimes rocky. The vegetation changes too. Thick with reeds and papyrus in some areas, more sparse in others. Ahead, we can see the outline of a large building near the water. As we get closer, we realize it's a warehouse, one of many along the riverfront. These warehouses store goods waiting to be loaded onto boats or distributed throughout the city. Grain primarily, the wealth of Egypt, but also oil and wine, dried fish, linen cloth, pottery tools, all the commodities that keep the economy running. The warehouse is locked and guarded at night, protecting against theft. The guard is sitting near the entrance, a lamp beside him. He's alert, watching us approach, his hand resting on his club. But he relaxes when he sees we're not a threat, just passers-by. We nod to him and continue on. The warehouses represent the practical, economic side of Egyptian civilization. All the grand temples and tombs, the art and religion and culture, they're built on a foundation of agriculture and trade, of production and distribution. Without the farmers growing crops, the craftsmen making goods, the merchants trading them, none of the rest would be possible. Egypt is wealthy because it's well organized, efficiently managed. The pharaoh and his officials oversee a complex system of taxation and redistribution. Farmers pay taxes in the form of grain, a percentage of their harvest. This grain is stored in granaries and then distributed to pay workers, feed the army, support the temples, and keep as a reserve against years of poor harvest. Scribes keep careful records of everything, tracking production and consumption, ensuring the system runs smoothly. It's a bureaucratic marvel, one of the earliest complex administrative states in human history. The night is growing late now, or rather early. We're in that strange time between midnight and dawn, when the night feels deepest but is actually beginning to wane. The stars are still bright, but there's a subtle change in the quality of the darkness, a sense that change is coming. Let's find a place to sit and rest for a while, to simply be with the river and the night. There's a large rock here, smooth and flat, perfect for sitting. We settle onto it, looking out across the water. The Nile flows past, dark and mysterious in the night. We can hear it, a soft rushing sound, the eternal voice of the river. This sound has been here for millions of years, long before Egypt, long before humans, and it will continue long after we're gone. But for now, in this moment, we're here. We're present, witnessing this ancient land in this quiet hour, and that's enough.